What's up, you guys, and welcome to another episode of The Variety Views. I'm your host, The Variety Vendor, and I'm here to rebook the Nexus angle. You see, it's true. It's one of the biggest misfires in WWE history. I agree. The Nexus could have been huge. They could have been the biggest faction of all time. However, I think that the Nexus, especially with an invading faction, its lifespan should have been maximum a year. Because if you go more than that, that's when you get into NWO territory. Because I do remember that some people said that, most people actually said that the NWO should have ended at Starrcade 97, which would have been like a year and a half after their debut. And I agree, yeah, they should have ended right then and there, or maybe a little bit, longer than that, but, that's it. But you see, there was no real end game to that faction. Now, when a faction is around, when a faction is created, there needs to be a goal. There needs to be a reason why that faction is there. It should not be just like, oh, we're just buddies, and that's it. What's the end game of it? Every character has to have a reason of why he's just going. There's got to be a reason for that. So what's their purpose? Well, the Nexus wants to take over the WWE. Now, in any movie that you would watch, when the villain loses, that's it. He's done. On to the next villain. So what I would do is have the Nexus be a big faction, a strong faction, and once they're defeated, that's when they disband. They go their separate ways. They become bigger stars on their own. Some of them make it, some of them don't. But hey, that's life. Not everybody makes it. So here's what I would have done. Now, everybody knows already. I don't need to give you the rundown on what happened with the Nexus. But, for the sake of this argument, this is what happened. The Nexus debuted. They invaded Raw. They attacked everybody. And then they ran roughshod for the next few months. There was a suspension. Daniel Bryan got suspended after the first night, after, debuting, because he choked out Justin Roberts with a tie, and then he was fired. He was fired right away. And skip forward to SummerSlam, and then it was the Nexus versus Team WWE. Daniel Bryan came out as a mystery partner of Team WWE, and Team WWE defeated the Nexus with, John Cena standing tall at the very end. And then the next few months, it was the Nexus feuding with John Cena, while at the same time, Wade Barrett is trying to go for the WWE Championship. Then we go on to TLC. John Cena defeated Wade Barrett. And after that, the Nexus had new management. It was CM Punk. Remember, I was actually hyped for that because it looked like that, hey, there's new life being brought into the Nexus. And that's what we thought. We thought that it was going to be the Nexus versus John Cena next. As the next feud, CM Punk versus John Cena. And I was really hyped for that. But that's not the direction that we went with. There was the Nexus versus Randy Orton again. And then after that, Summer of Punk, and the Nexus was just no more. There was no end game. There was no definitive end to the Nexus. It's just one day, it was no more. So, here's what I would have done. I would have done the same thing the first couple of months. Because here's the thing. Daniel Bryan could have been a big star as part of the Nexus. What could have been? But at the same time, I do think it was a blessing in disguise that Daniel Bryan got suspended or fired at the time, because he got so much fan support. Go back and watch Fatal 4-Way, the pay-per-view, the forgotten pay-per-view, Fatal 4-Way from 2010. The entire show, people were chanting for Daniel Bryan. People were pleading for justice for Daniel Bryan. And then when he returned at SummerSlam, he was a huge star. He just came out. And Daniel Bryan, it took him a while to become Daniel Bryan. As, you know, as a wrestler, as a character, as everything, great on the mic and everything. It took him a while. But if you go back and you watch his stuff in NXT, he's had some great gems, great mic work. But at the same time, it took him a while before he came into his own. So I think that was a blessing in disguise, and I would keep that. Him being suspended, I would keep that. You go on to SummerSlam. The thing that I didn't like about SummerSlam, two things I didn't like. Well, three things. One, obvious thing, Nexus lost. I didn't like that at all. Second thing is that there was no stipulation. Why was the Nexus facing Team WWE? Is that for bragging rights? Well, that's a few months later. What was on the line? What was the reason for the Nexus to main event SummerSlam against Team WWE? What was the reason? There was no stipulation. So, what I would have done is that throughout their run, Nexus's run, from their debut up until SummerSlam, they're just renegades. They have no contracts. So, a stipulation is made for SummerSlam, Team WWE versus Team Nexus, with, if Nexus wins, they get contracts. All of them. All of them get contracts. But if they lose, Nexus must leave the WWE. They would no longer work in WWE. Of course, the Nexus wins. But here's the caveat, right? The team that comprises of Team WWE, I did not like that the team was R-Truth, John Morrison, Bret Hart, past his prime Bret Hart. Switch those out, because you're in a war. Now sure, R-Truth and John Morrison, you want to give them the rub. They were the new guys at the time. You want to give them the rub. But at the same time, this is a war. This is not about them. It's not about putting them over. It's about putting the new faction over. You think the Nexus gets anything out of beating R-Truth? Out of beating John Morrison? They get nothing. They're not big names for them to defeat. Them beating Edge, them beating Chris Jericho, yeah, that is a big deal. So, I would switch those out. Switch out Bret Hart, R-Truth, and John Morrison with Mr. Money in the Bank at the time, The Miz, Sheamus, who was the WWE champion, and Randy Orton, who was over as hell at that time. And he was gunning for the WWE championship. So, you put those guys in Team WWE. Team WWE versus Team Nexus. Of course, Daniel Bryan comes out as the mystery partner to Team WWE. The Miz is irate, and there's just this one-upmanship between The Miz and Daniel Bryan. And this is what I would have loved to have seen, is this interplay, this inner turmoil. The Nexus is a well-oiled machine, while the Team WWE are just imploding. You got Chris Jericho and Edge, who hate each other. You got Randy Orton and Sheamus, who hate each other. You got Sheamus and John Cena, who hate each other. You got Randy Orton and John Cena, who, still have some beef against each other. All these things. And The Miz and Daniel Bryan, who hates, Daniel Bryan and The Miz, who absolutely hate each other. And The Miz gets eliminated because he was way too cocky. And then Daniel Bryan is just, smiling at the fact that The Miz got eliminated. The Miz comes back, and then he helps the Nexus eliminate Daniel Bryan. And he's so happy about it. He's so happy about it. And then The Miz and Daniel Bryan just fight to the back. Same thing with Jericho and Edge. You do that. And then, Randy Orton and Sheamus. And there would be at one point where everybody's down and Sheamus is in the ring. He's fighting by himself, and then he sees, the Nexus 7 going up against him, and he's like, oh, screw this. And then he walks out, gets counted out, and he's eliminated. Because he's not going to fight. He's not going to fight all 7 men, so he gets eliminated. Now, we go down to the wire where it's just John Cena versus Justin Gabriel and Wade Barrett. And, of course, John Cena eliminates Justin Gabriel after, a missed 450 splash. John Cena rolls him up, 1, 2, 3. As soon as he gets up, Wade Barrett waffles him with a forearm or, a running big boot, whatever. Whatever the move that he would like to go for, and pins John Cena 1, 2, 3. The Nexus win. Thus, the Nexus earned contracts. They've earned WWE contracts. The Nexus come out. They carry Wade Barrett, on their shoulders. Confetti fills the arena. Black and yellow. The next night on Raw. Here's something that I also didn't like about the Nexus. Sure, they're a faction, but who are they? As individuals, who are they? We don't know. They're just guys. They're just guys together. That's it. They're no different than the Putty Gang from Power Rangers. So, let's give them a little bit of character. When they come out, you have Justin Gabriel, having some, his hair is painted up. It's like he's got hair dye or whatever. He looks, freaking ridiculous. Heath Slater coming out with his studded cowboy hat. And Skip Sheffield coming out with his, torn off sleeves. Even though that he's wearing a suit, but it's like the sleeves are torn off. You got David Otunga coming out with, a girl on each arm. Wade Barrett coming out and he's got the rose on his suit, and his suit is the most expensive of the faction. And but they're they do have a very distinct look. The kind of look when you look at them and you're like, oh yeah, that's the Nexus. They got a shirt underneath the suit. It's a black suit, but they got a yellow shirt underneath. They get into the ring, and Vince McMahon is waiting for them. Vince McMahon has got contracts laid up in the ring on Raw the next night after SummerSlam. And he's got the 7 contracts on the table. All right, guys, you've earned this. The Nexus signed their contracts, and they're happy. They pop the champagne. Yes, we are WWE superstars. Wade Barrett gets on the mic, and he says, this was only the first step of the Nexus dynasty. What's going to happen next for the Nexus is the WWE Championship. Sheamus, I know that you've been running roughshod on Raw. You've beaten everybody. You are the man. But that championship is going to come to me. It's going to be around my waist come Night of Champions. Vince McMahon goes, whoa, 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 whoa. Wait a minute. WWE champion? You? Wade Barrett? No, you're not getting a WWE title shot. Wade Barrett says, what are you talking about? I won NXT Season 1. That means that I earned a shot at the World Champion whenever I want. That was the contract that I signed. Vince McMahon says, yes, you've earned a shot at the World Championship whenever you want. But it's not going to be the WWE Championship, because if you read your contracts, you're going to SmackDown. You think that I'm going to put renegades, anarchists on my A show? You must be out of your mind. No, I'm not putting you on here. This is your last night on Raw. So off with you to SmackDown. Wait, and everybody, like the entire Nexus stable, are just beside themselves. And Wade Barrett is calm, and he's like, all right, you know what? That's fine. That's absolutely fine. We'll make SmackDown our kingdom. That is absolutely fine. But being that this is our last night on Raw, we must leave on a high note. And that's when they circle around Vince and attack him. Put him through a table. Justin Gabriel hits the 450 splash. The entire Raw locker room comes out, and the Nexus bail through the crowd. And they leave. That is the last time we see the Nexus on Raw. On SmackDown, they would come out, they would cut a promo. They have been given the A treatment on the B show. With the Nexus coming through the crowd, they've got their own entrance. The Nexus entrance. They come out through the crowd. They get into the ring, they cut their promos, pretty much introducing themselves to the SmackDown audience. And we go on to Night of Champions. We go on to Night of Champions with Heath Slater winning the Intercontinental title and going backstage and celebrating with the Nexus. I won the Intercontinental title. Wade Barrett is just sitting there, and he's watching the monitor. He's like, that's great. That's wonderful. David Otunga and Justin Gabriel won the tag titles at Night of Champions. Go backstage, and they're celebrating. They're popping champagne, and they're so happy. Wade Barrett is like, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. He's looking at the monitor, and he's like, and then that's when they look at him, and they're like, what's going on? That's when, I think Todd Grisham, was Todd Grisham around at the time? One of the backstage interviewers come in, and they pretty much, the backstage interviewer would ask Wade Barrett, you don't seem really happy, for your stable winning, gold. Why is that? Why aren't you happy for them? Wade Barrett's like, them winning those championships is a great feat, but we are not done yet. I will not rest. I will not smile. I will not be happy until we've got all the gold. And then the camera would pan to the monitor, and we see the main event of the show, and that is Kane coming out with the World Heavyweight Championship to the ring. Now, I would keep the storyline with Kane and The Undertaker the same, with The Undertaker returning at SummerSlam, and then we have the match at Night of Champions with Kane and The Undertaker. Now, originally, that match was freaking boring, so I would just end it really, really quick. 4 minutes, tops. They hit their big moves, but then it ends in a double DQ. the entire SmackDown roster coming out, and Kane and Undertaker just choke slamming everybody, destroying everybody, hitting tombstones on different guys. You know, Kane is running off with his title while Undertaker is just destroying jobbers left and right. You know, think Survivor Series 2005 when Undertaker returned and he just destroyed everybody. And Undertaker's like, this is not over. Does his cutthroat, cutthroat pose, and does his Undertaker pose and everything, and we go off the air. And that's the end of Night of Champions. Now you have a reason for Kane and the Undertaker to face off against each other at Hell in a Cell, because the idea is that Kane and the Undertaker, they cannot be, they cannot abide by the normal rules with all this bad blood. So having them inside Hell in a Cell makes sense. And still do the Paul Bearer thing, but at the same time, I wouldn't have Paul Bearer be in anyone's side. I wouldn't have Paul Bearer come back as, in Undertaker's side or Kane's side. He's pretty much neutral. The idea being is that Paul Bearer is just a very reluctant father, where he's like, he's absolutely beside himself when it comes to this. And he's like, you two are my sons. I do not want you to fight against each other. I want you to fight beside each other. You are much stronger together than you are alone. And pretty much he goes to Undertaker and he's like, come on, and he even like, you feel for him, and he's like, Taker, come on. That boy is just, he was always jealous of you. He was always jealous of your legendary status. He always wanted to be at your level. And he's just has this young guy mindset. And all he wants to do was be at your level. And Undertaker is like, I don't know what to tell you, Paul. He made it personal. And we kind of peel a little bit back, and we get to know a little bit about those guys. Because what I didn't like about the feud was that there was no story to it. All it was Kane bad, Undertaker good. What else? Tell me more. And if you would look at the views, I remember at the time, whenever Undertaker and Kane were in the ring, the views were so freaking high. I remember the views would crack over 6 million at the time. People were into it. People were into Kane versus The Undertaker. But once the matches happened, people stopped caring. So you add these little things to it. And Undertaker and Kane have a match. They absolutely destroy each other. And by the end, it's pretty much like Shawn Michaels versus, Ric Flair from WrestleMania 24, where Undertaker is barely standing. He cannot fend for himself, and Kane is destroying The Undertaker. And by the end, Kane beats The Undertaker. And then after the match, Paul Bearer gets into the ring, and, Kane kind of snaps out of it. Because at one point he goes, I'm better than you, brother. I'm better than you. And right before he leaves, Undertaker grabs his arm, grabs Kane's arm, and Kane, he's ready for another fight. He's ready for round 2. He grabs his title and he's ready for it. But, Undertaker gets up to his feet, and then he bows to Kane, as if, like, I'm showing you respect. And then Kane bows to The Undertaker, and both of them then look at Paul Bearer and they bow to Paul. And then they do their pose, and, the Brothers of Destruction have reunited. It's comic book type of storytelling, you know? This is what was great about Kane and the Undertaker. This is what people love about Kane and the Undertaker, because they are comic book characters. It's awesome. It's awesome, you know? That's one of the best things about wrestling, is these kind of characters that have a very complicated lore behind them. Paul Bearer leaves, the lights go out. They come back on, the Nexus are surrounding Paul Bearer. They attack Paul, then they surround the ring. Kane and the Undertaker are back to back. They're like the last gunslingers, ready for one more fight. Nexus come into the ring, and they attack the Brothers of Destruction. They destroy the Brothers. They stand tall with all the gold, as is Wade with the World Heavyweight Championship, and boom, we're off the air. That's how you end Hell in a Cell. The attacks don't end. Every week on SmackDown, they're attacking somebody different. Because I do recall at this time, people were getting injured. So this is a great way to write people off. They would take out guys like, you know, I think Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio was close to getting. I think he was injured for a little bit. Then he came back. You know, you take out guys that aren't really needed on the roster. You take out Jack Swagger, and then Jack Swagger can pop up on a different show. They would destroy, you know, Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre. You know, they can pop up on Raw, or, you know, they can come back later on. And they would destroy everybody. They would destroy Christian, because Christian was taken out by Alberto Del Rio in storyline, but in actuality, he tore his pec back in August. I do think that it was from the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. That's where he tore his pec, but I think he wasn't really sure, but then it was official. It was, I think it was in September, where Alberto Del Rio pretty much took him out, and then we didn't see Christian for the next few months. So make that part of, you know, the Nexus story. Nexus just taking people out left and right. We go on to bragging rights, and we have a buried alive match. The Nexus versus the Brothers of Destruction. Wade Barrett picks one of the Nexus members to be his partner in this battle. And we have a Beat the Clock challenge on SmackDown. And the winner of that Beat the Clock challenge is, let's say, Husky Harris. Okay? We have Husky Harris let him team up with Wade Barrett, because, you know, he's a good big guy, and I remember Skip Sheffield was injured at the time, so you can have Husky Harris there. And plus, I think it would tie things up really nicely for the feud later on between the Wyatt family and Kane, and the Wyatt family and The Undertaker, and also the Wyatt family against the Brothers of Destruction going up to Survivor Series 2015. So it's a good, I think it's a good mix, having Husky Harris be part of that. And we have a buried alive match. Now, the stipulation of this, the rules of this was that you only have to bury one opponent. It doesn't have to be both guys of the opposing team, because, as I recall, back in '99, there was a buried alive match on SmackDown. And it was, you know, oddly enough, The Undertaker and The Big Show going up against the Rock and Sock Connection. And at the end, it was Mankind being buried. So you use the same stipulation, and that would be a great way to, bury the Undertaker so that, Undertaker takes time off, and then he comes back later on. And, on the undercard, you have Heath Slater defending the SmackDown honor as Intercontinental Champion versus the U.S. Champion, who is Daniel Bryan. Again, it makes sense. Daniel Bryan, former Nexus member, going up against the current Nexus member. Same thing with, I guess the tag team titles were defended on both shows, as I recall. So, you can have the tag team champions be part of Team SmackDown going up against Team Raw. And yeah, the Nexus win again at bragging rights. They win all their matches. Now, the following SmackDown, this is where it gets tricky. Wade Barrett says that he will not stop until he wins that World Heavyweight Championship. That is his destiny. That is his purpose of being in the WWE, is to be the champion, to be the best. And he stakes his claim as #1 contender, and he cashes in on his opportunity by saying, at Survivor Series, that's where I want to win the World Heavyweight Championship against Kane. And the Nexus kind of have some problems going on at this time, where Heath Slater loses the Intercontinental Championship. Wade Barrett doesn't care. The following week, the Nexus lose the tag team titles. Wade Barrett doesn't care. Teddy Long then says that since the Nexus don't have the titles, since they don't have the power no more, that means at Survivor Series, it's going to be Team SmackDown versus Team Nexus. And if Nexus wins, they control SmackDown for the next 90 days. However, if Team SmackDown wins, the Nexus must disband. And Wade Barrett just, doesn't think much of it. He's like, we're going to win. We're going to win the World Heavyweight Championship and control over SmackDown, so it will truly be our kingdom. The Nexus are happy. They go on to Survivor Series. Midway through the show, Wade Barrett wins the World Heavyweight Championship, and he celebrates with his Nexus compadres. And the Nexus are like, we are going to get control over SmackDown. And Wade Barrett's like, see, I got the proof around my waist. I got the World Heavyweight Championship. And you know what? Whatever Teddy Long thinks next, whatever he tries to scheme, I got the World Heavyweight Championship. And no matter what, we're all brothers. And they pretty much, fist bump and, pretty much say that, okay, yeah, Wade Barrett's got our back. Because Wade Barrett is like, who brought you guys? I got you guys here. And we ran roughshod on Raw. And now we're running roughshod on SmackDown. So I will never forget about you guys. When you got eliminated out of NXT Season 1, I still stood by you guys. So now, me as World Heavyweight Champion, I'm standing by you guys. So later on in the main event, the Nexus face Team SmackDown, and Team SmackDown wins. Wade Barrett is nowhere in sight. We never see Wade Barrett throughout the match. There are times where David Otunga is looking back, waiting for Wade Barrett to come out and help them. Wade Barrett's not there. Team SmackDown goes over. and the Nexus must disband. Wade Barrett comes out afterwards. He's got his World Heavyweight Championship on his shoulder, and he's got a bottle of champagne. He's drinking up, and he's looking at his former members of the Nexus, and he just shakes his head, and then he walks away. And that's how we end the Nexus. After that, on SmackDown, Nexus are nowhere to be found. They have no titles. They have nothing. They have no jobs. They're not around. That's it. It's just Wade Barrett. On SmackDown, Teddy Long says, just because you're World Heavyweight Champion does not mean that you control this brand. So I'm going to test you. Every week, I'm going to test how good of a champion you truly are. Because holding that championship means that you are the best this business has to offer. So, starting tonight, you will be defending your World Heavyweight Championship. First week, he defends against Rey Mysterio. Gets DQ'd, doesn't care. Leaves the ring. Second week, he faces Edge. Gets counted out, he doesn't care. Leaves. Faces Kane the week after that. And it's a no DQ match. But Kane is attacked before the match even starts. And Kane is just he's attacked backstage, and he cannot show up to the arena. And Wade Barrett wins via forfeit. And Teddy Long says, "Oh, so you think you're smart? Okay, all right, you're smart. You know, you escape through countouts, DQs, and forfeits. That's smart. Well, let's see how you get out of this. At TLC, you're defending your World Heavyweight Championship against Edge, Rey Mysterio, and Kane in a fatal four-way TLC match. Let's see you get out of that one." They go to TLC. We go to TLC. And Wade Barrett again retains the World Heavyweight Championship. Somehow, some way, Wade Barrett retains. We go on to SmackDown, New Year's SmackDown, and I remember Kane having the best match in his career against Edge in a last man standing match. If you haven't checked it out, or if it's been a while since you've seen it, watch that match. It's so great. Kane's best match. Last man standing. Edge versus Kane. So instead, just switch Edge out with Wade Barrett. Let them have a last man standing match. And Wade Barrett retains the World Heavyweight Championship. We go on to the Royal Rumble. Wade Barrett versus Edge in a street fight. Wade Barrett retains against Edge. Now, Wade Barrett's on top of the world. He's defeated everybody. So at Elimination Chamber, he's got no competition. He's beaten everybody. Who's there left to beat? There's nobody left to beat. So, Teddy Long comes out on SmackDown. And he says to Wade Barrett, tonight, you're going to be in a gauntlet match. Non-title, gauntlet match. Whoever beats you is going to be in the Elimination Chamber match. Santino comes out. Wade Barrett beats him real quick. Kozlov comes out. Wade Barrett beats him real quick. And, Wade Barrett is just, high and mighty. And he gets on the mic after each win. And he's like, at least get me some competition. And, there is no stopping to the Barrett barrage. And Teddy Long says, oh, you think that's it? I made a phone call, and you're going to be seeing a lot more familiar faces. Out comes Husky Harris. They have a back and forth match. Husky Harris wins. Michael McGillicuddy beats Wade Barrett, who's barely on his feet. Justin Gabriel comes out and he beats Wade Barrett. Heath Slater comes out, beats Wade Barrett. And finally, David Otunga comes out and he beats Wade Barrett. And it's just, Wade Barrett's just absolutely destroyed. After every match, it doesn't take much. Finisher, boom, 1, 2, 3. So now, at Elimination Chamber, it's going to be an all-Nexus Elimination Chamber match. And Wade Barrett defends his World Heavyweight Championship in that match, only to retain. And Wade Barrett retains the World Heavyweight Championship, saying that, all you were beneath me to begin with. And the way the match would be structured would be that, Wade Barrett would be the final entrant in the Elimination Chamber match. So, during this time, the Nexus guys, the former Nexus guys, are turning on each other. Especially with David Otunga, who's, a natural heel. And finally, Wade Barrett finds a way to win and, eliminates the final competitor. Wade Barrett is happy. The chamber is lifted. Wade Barrett pretty much is like, there is no competition left on SmackDown, and out comes the Royal Rumble winner. Now, who would have won the Rumble at that year? It shouldn't have been Alberto Del Rio, because I think that Alberto Del Rio was pushed way too fast to the point where his wheels fell off before winning his first championship. So instead, you build him up slowly. I remember Alberto Del Rio having a great match with Kofi Kingston at Elimination Chamber of that year. But it wasn't for the Intercontinental Championship. So, you build him up for the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania. And that's where you crown Alberto Del Rio as Intercontinental Champion. Because I think he would have been a great Intercontinental Champion. Slowly but surely, you would elevate him. And then he wins the Money in the Bank and then goes for the WWE Championship. But until then, Alberto Del Rio is he's working with the undercard. He's getting himself over. As for the Royal Rumble winner, now, who should win the Rumble but a returning Christian? Christian was attacked by the Nexus back in September. So, he comes back for revenge. Wins the Rumble. 1 year after his best friend comes back from another career-ending injury. Because Edge, tore his Achilles tendon back in 2009, in July, I believe, in a house show. And he came back at the Rumble, eliminating Chris Jericho, and then feuding with Jericho after that. So 1 year later, Christian follows in the footsteps of his best friend and wins the Rumble. He wants revenge against Wade Barrett and wants the World Heavyweight Championship, the one title that eluded his career. So, that's the match for WrestleMania. Christian versus Wade Barrett for the World Heavyweight Championship with Edge on his side. And think of how great of an ending to that WrestleMania it would have been. Christian defeating Wade Barrett, And then after the match, Edge and Christian embrace as Wade Barrett is carted off. And then the Nexus, the former Nexus members come out. And instead of attacking Wade Barrett, they carry Wade Barrett out. And then on SmackDown, the former Nexus members say that, you know, we might not be a faction anymore, but Wade, you truly were a strong leader. And you proved it right there. With your title reign, and at WrestleMania, you went toe-to-toe with Christian, having an amazing match. We now respect you more than ever. And there is this friendship going on between them, but at the same time, David Otunga is the guy that's pretty much, you know, he's the leech of the group. And then slowly but surely, David Otunga starts his own group to go after Wade Barrett, and that's the next feud. Going on to SummerSlam, and it's Team David Otunga versus Team Wade Barrett. 1 year after their big match of getting their contracts, and now it's Team David Otunga versus Team Wade Barrett at SummerSlam. And that is how I would have booked the Nexus. Because what I didn't like was that they were confined to the Raw bubble to the point where they weren't given a shot, actually. You know, because Raw had so many big names on that show. They had so many things going on at that time that they really didn't need the Nexus. So if anything, I think SmackDown needed it. Because Raw had super shows later on, and everybody was showing up everywhere. So SmackDown really didn't have an identity. At that time, I remember SmackDown was slowly turning to Raw Light, or the clip show of Raw, because we get the Raw highlights and stuff bleeding onto SmackDown and stuff bleeding onto Raw, but Raw was mainly like the main show. So what I would have done was just have the Nexus be a part of SmackDown. Let them be the SmackDown guys. Let them carry SmackDown. And that would be it. That would be the story. And that's pretty much it. Like, that's all I would have done. You know, you have a new main eventer in Wade Barrett, and eventually with David Otunga. And the former Nexus members, they can carry the mid-card while you build to the future. So, yeah. And then later on, you can have a loser leaves town match between David Otunga and Wade Barrett. David Otunga wins, and he, you know, morphs into his own with his new faction, while Wade Barrett goes to Raw. And then he makes something out of himself there as a babyface. So, like, there's so much that you could have done after that. But mainly this is what I would have done with the Nexus booking. So let me know in the comment section below what you thought of my Nexus booking. And, as always, rate and share with your friends and share with everybody. And check out my next video. I'll be talking about something else. It might be another booking video. I'm not sure. Until then, take care.